Well, hello, confirmands. This is the final lesson of this year's confirmation series. This is year 1, lesson 23 on Esther. We're getting together on the 18th, 7 o'clock at Nelsonville, 8 o'clock online. Some of you still have an awful lot of work to do, the other parts of confirmation. Your worship attendance has to be done, 10 hours of service in the world, 5 hours of service in the church, your Bible readings, your lessons. You know, it's if you just do it a little at a time, it's not so bad. But if you wait until the last couple weeks, it's going to be truly awful. You have to get everything done by July 31st, or you have to appear before the church councils and make your case why you should get confirmed or why you should advance, even if you haven't done the work. Just do the work. All right. So again, we're talking about Esther. So we start in the Persian Empire. King Ahasuerus is the king. His empire stretches from Ethiopia to India. It is an enormous empire. He has an incredible amount of power, and he is very proud of himself. When we start our story, he is having a banquet with his leading officials, showing everyone how powerful he is. There's lots of money. There's lots of rich food. There's lots of wine. The king gets drunk, and he decides that he wants to show everyone how beautiful his wife is. Now, in this time, in this culture, that's completely inappropriate. You know, that you wouldn't put your wife on parade, especially for a bunch of drunks who just want to leer at her, who just want to ogle her. And so a message is sent to the queen that she's supposed to appear so that the drunk king and all his guests can say, woohoo! And Queen Vashti says, no, I'm not going. I'm not going to do that. Well, this makes the king terribly angry that the queen is disobeying him in front of all of his guests. He's embarrassed. He's angry. He calls his advisors together, and they say to him, King, you know, it's a bigger deal than you can imagine, because if you don't punish this, women all over the empire are going to stop obeying their husbands. Queen Vashti is a terrible example to women. Women should do exactly what their husbands tell them, exactly when their husbands tell them to do it, and you got to deal with this. You got to depose this woman. And so the king stripped Vashti of her identity as queen, sent her back into the royal harems, and made a royal decree that she would never see his face again. Well, that's quite a thing. Brings us to our first word of the phrase that pays this week. That word is all. A-L-L, all. All right. Now, a little while later, the king's anger cooled down, and he kind of missed having a queen, and so he asked his advisors what they should do, and they said, you should have an empire-wide beauty pageant. And here's how it should go. That you should bring in the most beautiful virgins in the entire empire. Bring them in. They should go into your royal harem where they will receive 1 year of beauty treatments. And then at the end of the year, each of them will come and spend a night with you. If you like her, you can make her the new queen. If you want to keep looking, keep going through the woman in this beauty pageant, then she'll go into the second tier of your harem. You'll never see her again. No one else will ever sleep with her again. She'll just live out her life as one of your royal concubines. But we'll never see your face again, never trouble you again. Well, the king thought this sounded like an absolutely excellent idea. So they set up this horrible beauty pageant, you know, bringing in these young women from everywhere. They had no choice in the matter. They didn't want to be there. Who wants to be given to a king? You know, you have a few hours with him, and then you disappear into seclusion for the rest of your life. No husband, no children, no family, no companionship, nothing. I mean, it's just nasty. At any rate, the king thought this was a great idea, so he set the wheels in motion. And one of the young women who got scooped up was a woman named Esther. Now, Esther was an orphan. Her parents had both died, and she had been raised by her cousin Mordecai. Mordecai was a gatekeeper. He was part of security for the palace. And Mordecai had raised her as his own daughter. He was several years older than Esther. Raised her as his own daughter, cared for her, loved her. She loved him. And when she got scooped up, Mordecai said to her, "Don't tell anybody that you're a Jew. Just leave that part out. You're beautiful, you're talented, you're wonderful. Maybe the king will make you the queen. Just don't talk a lot about where you come from or who your family is or who your people are. And Esther listened to that and didn't tell anybody. Now, she she was noticed in this group of women going through their 1 year of beauty treatments. One of the eunuchs that was in charge of the harem noticed her, liked her. Esther asked his advice for many things and did what he said, and so he advanced her in the harem. He gave her maids of her own, and when her magical night came to visit the king loved her. The king thought she was the best of all of the women in this beauty pageant that he'd put together, and he made her his new queen. The second word in the phrase that pays is work. Work is the second word in this week's phrase that pays. Now, so Esther has become queen. Mordecai walks, he's again palace security, and he sees her from time to time, and they send messages to one another. And Mordecai is thrilled that his little cousin, his daughter, in some ways, is the new queen of the empire, and life goes on. Now, Mordecai happened to overhear a couple of the king's eunuchs plotting against the king, plotting to assassinate the king. He did some digging and he discovered it was a real plot. He sent a message to Esther that the king's life was in danger, and she got a message to the king. Your servant Mordecai, who works at the gate, palace security, has uncovered a plot. These two guys are planning to kill you. The king investigated, discovered it was true. The two guys were hung. Is it hanged? I think it's hanged. They were hanged until they were dead, and again, life goes back to normal. The third word in the phrase that pays, that. T-H-A-T, that. Now, the king needed new helpers, new advisors. The two guys who were trying to assassinate him were pretty important. And so the king advanced a guy named Haman, right? H-A-M-A-N. I don't know if it could be Haman, right? Haman. The king advanced him, made him one of the leaders of the kingdom, one of the most important guys in the kingdom. And Haman settled into his new job. Now, he became very important very quickly, and the king ordered everybody when Haman passed by to bow to him. And everybody did, because they were afraid of the king, except for Mordecai. And Mordecai's fellow workers would say to him, you're supposed to bow to that guy. And Mordecai says, I'm a Jew. I don't bow to anybody but God. I'm not doing it. And they said, you're going to get in big trouble. And Haman noticed finally that this guy wasn't bowing down to him. He asked a few questions, found out that this was Mordecai, the Jew, and he decided that he hated Mordecai. He wanted him destroyed. Every time he came through the gate, Mordecai wouldn't bow down to him, and Haman was just filled with rage. He didn't just want to hurt Mordecai. He wanted to kill all of Mordecai's people, anyone, anywhere who wouldn't bow down to a man as important as he considered himself. And so he went to the emperor, to the king, and he said to him, there's a strange group of people in your kingdom. They don't follow your laws. They don't do what you tell them to do. They have their own language, their own religion. I think we should get rid of them. What do you think? And the king said, well, you got my attention. What do you think we should do? And Haman said, I'll tell you what. It is the 13th day of the first month. This is going to take some time to put into action. Why don't we have a decree that on the 13th day of the 12th month, that anyone anywhere who wants to kill these horrible people can do it, and they can take all their stuff. That'll motivate people to to do the killing we need done. And just as a way of thanking your majesty for your wisdom and your grace and all that you do for the kingdom, I'm going to put 10,000 talents of silver into the royal treasury. Remember, a talent is a weight. It's like 10,000 laundry baskets full of silver. This is a shocking amount of money that Haman is going to put in the treasury to have all Jews everywhere exterminated. Well, this sounds better and better to the king, and so he writes this decree and signs it, and it's sent everywhere in the empire that on the 13th day of the 12th month, all Jews everywhere can be attacked, and you can take their stuff, you can kill them if you want, you can do whatever you want to them. And obviously, Jews everywhere fall apart. I mean, they are just horrified. What just happened? That suddenly, out of the blue, there's this decree that we can just be killed. And so across the empire, they mourned, they wept, they put on sackcloth and ashes. They prayed for God to take care of them. And they were horrified that this day is coming when they're all going to be exterminated. The fourth word in the phrase that pays is the word is. All right, so Mordecai is dressed in sackcloth and ashes, and Queen Esther looks out her window one day and she sees her cousin, her dad, I mean, however you want to understand it, in sackcloth and ashes, and she doesn't know what's going on. She doesn't know anything about this decree. And so she sends one of her eunuchs out to talk to Mordecai and ask what's going on, and send some clothes out, and he won't accept the clothes. He's wearing sackcloth and ashes for a reason. He sends word back to the queen, we got this trouble, and you got to do something about it. You might think that being queen is going to protect you, but it won't. This is all Jews everywhere. You've got to save us. And maybe this is why God made you, allowed you to become the queen to begin with. Well, Esther's scared to death, because one of the rules was that you can't go into the presence of the king without being summoned. If you go into the presence of the king without being summoned, you will be killed. Unless the king holds out his scepter to you. The king has the right to say, all right, you're not supposed to be here, but it's cool this time. So Esther says to Mordecai through the eunuch, right, go tell everybody everywhere, tell all the Jews everywhere that they should fast and pray for 3 days. And I'll do the same here. My maids will do the same. And at the end of those 3 days, if the king hasn't called for me, I'll go to him. He hasn't called for me in more than 30 days. But I'll take my life in my hands and I'll go to the king. If he kills me, he kills me, right? But I will try to help. And so Mordecai tells everybody, they begin to fast and pray. Esther and her maids fast and pray, which brings us to the fifth word of the phrase that pays. The word is worth. W-O-R-T-H. So, after those 3 days, on the fourth day, Esther fixes herself up just as pretty as she can, and she goes into the presence of the king. The king looks up, and there is Queen Esther, and he holds out the scepter to her. What do you need, Queen? I'll give you anything you want, half my kingdom. You know I love you. You know you're my favorite. I don't know why you're here, but it must be important. So what can I do for you? And Esther said, it would make me really happy, Your Majesty, if you would come to a little party that I'm throwing tonight. And why don't you bring your buddy Haman, and we can talk about what I need. But I would be just very, very grateful for that. And the king says, well, that's easy. We're happy to do that, aren't we, Haman? And Haman is so over the moon happy. He cannot believe he's going to have a private dinner with the king and the queen, eat food made by the queen's own hand. I mean, he just thinks he's died and gone to heaven, right? This is the best thing that ever happened to him. So they have the banquet that night, the meal that night, and at the meal the king says, what is it? What's the problem? Something's wrong, and I want to make it right. I'll give you anything you want, half my kingdom. And Esther says, Can we just do this again tomorrow night? Can you and Haman come again tomorrow night? I'll make you another meal and we'll talk about it then. And the king says, certainly, absolutely. And Haman goes home, and he is so filled with joy. He is so full of himself. He cannot believe it. He goes out the gates, and there's Mordecai. And Mordecai doesn't bow down to him. And that good feeling just evaporates. He's filled with rage. He goes home and he tells his wife, I want this guy dead. I hate him. I can't even enjoy that I just had dinner with the king and the queen. I'm supposed to have dinner with them tomorrow, and I'm just so mad. And his wife says, you're the most important guy in the kingdom. Build a gallows. Have our servants build a gallows tonight. Tomorrow morning, you go to the king, you ask permission to hang Mordecai. The king's going to say yes, right? You're important. He's not. So Haman thinks this is a great idea and has his servants build gallows 50 cubits high. A cubit is 18 inches, roughly. So these are gallows that are 75 feet high, if you can imagine that. And he goes to bed happy as can be, listening to the sound of these hammers pounding, sleeps the sleep of the righteous. He is happy as can be. Let's see. Did I give you the word anything? I don't think I gave you the word anything. Sixth word is anything. If I already gave it to you, I did. But, there it is again. Sixth word is anything. And then the seventh word is. So, Haman is planning to have Mordecai killed. He's sleeping a happy sleep. The king, however, is not able to sleep. The king has insomnia. And so the king has the royal records read to him. I guess that would put anybody to sleep. And the royal records, they open it randomly. They open it to a page, and it's the page that recounts how Mordecai saved the king from the assassination attempt. And the king says, wait a second, did we ever do anything for that guy? And the record guy said, no, we never did. It just sort of disappeared, into the hustle and bustle. And the king said, no. He saved my life. We're going to do something for him. Now, by this time, the sun was rising, and Haman has entered the court. And the king said, are any of my officers here? And the records guy say, well, yeah, Haman just came in. And the king said, bring him to me. And so Haman gets brought to the king, and let's see, I think I gave you the word is, didn't I? Did I give you the word is? It's very puzzling where we are in this thing. I think I did. The word is comes after the word anything. Anyway, the king says to Haman, if you wanted to honor someone, if I wanted to honor someone, what should I do? And Haman thought to himself, well, who can the king be talking about except for me? I mean, I'm eating with the king and the queen. He wants to honor me. What should he do? Well, king, what you should do is you should dress this person in royal robes that you yourself have worn. And you should put him on one of your horses, a horse that you yourself have ridden. And you should have one of your leading nobles parade the guy through the city crying out, this is how the emperor honors someone who has been faithful to him, someone who has obeyed him. And the king said, that sounds great. Go get Mordecai, do everything you just said to Mordecai, everything. And Haman wants to die. He can't believe what just happened, the reversal. He doesn't have any choice. He takes the king's robe, dresses Mordecai. He puts Mordecai on the king's stallion. He parades him through town. This is how the king honors someone who has been faithful to him. And then he goes home and he cannot believe. He hangs his head. He is horrified, humiliated, and now he's really scared, right? He was going to ask to kill Mordecai, and now he's spent all day honoring Mordecai, and his wife says to him, buddy, you might have a problem. This might be it for you, right? Next word in the phrase that pays, done. Done. Yeah, what the wife said to Mordecai, or to Haman, you might be done. At any rate, Haman is so upset that he forgets that there's this party. Eunuchs come and get him, and you bring him to the party. So they're eating again, and the king says to the queen, look, just what is it? I see you're troubled. I want to help, up to half my kingdom. And she says to him, well, Majesty, there's a plot to destroy me, to kill me, to have me assassinated, and not just me, but all of my people. And the king is horrified. Who would dare kill my queen? And Esther says, Haman. And the king is filled with rage. He goes out into the garden to cool down, right? Because he's in a towering rage. And as he leaves the room, Haman is terrified. He knows his life is not worth anything right now. And he throws himself, grabs the queen's legs, to ask for mercy. And just then the king comes back in and he sees Haman kind of draped over the queen. And he says, and now you're going to assault the queen in my own palace? This is it for you. And some of the servants say, King, he just built a gallows 50 cubits high to hang Mordecai, the guy that saved your life. And the king says, take him and hang him on his own gallows. And that's what happened. Haman swung on his own gallows. The next word is the word in. At any rate, we still have this decree out in the world that on the 13th day of the 12th month, everybody who wants to kill a Jew can kill a Jew. Anyone who wants to take their stuff can take their stuff. And remember the decrees of the Babylonians, the Persians, the Medes. They can't be undone, right? Remember that with Daniel in the lion's den. The rule is the rule. And so Esther goes back to the king and says, we still have a problem. There's still this decree. And the king says, what should I do? I don't know what to do. But here's my royal ring. You and Mordecai, you figure something out. You write whatever you want to write. You seal it with my ring. That's the best I can do for you right now. And so Esther and Mordecai, they talk about it, and they write letters to the empire that, yes, this attack is going to happen on the 13th day of the 12th month, but Jews everywhere have the right to gather together, to arm themselves, to form militias, to kill anyone who attacks them. And if anyone attacks them, the Jews can take their stuff. So this word goes out, and the word goes out that Mordecai is maybe the most important guy in the kingdom right now, and he has the king's full trust. And people who were planning on attacking the Jews, most of them melt away, like dew in the sunshine. The few that wind up trying to attack the Jews, they get killed, right? Because the Jews are ready for them, and they kill their enemies. Now, the last word in the phrase that pays, before we get to who it is faith. Faith, F-A-I-T-H. Now, so all over the empire, the enemies of the Jews are destroyed. Mordecai is one of the king's top advisors. Esther is his beautiful queen. Things are good, and Mordecai sends out another word to the Jews, saying, for the rest of time, we should remember this time, how God let Esther become queen, how God moved in circumstances to give us the warning we needed to do what we needed to do, how God set us free from our enemies. By the way, the first name of the person who wrote this phrase that pays is Albert. And so here's what we should do every day or every year from now on the 14th and the 15th days of the 12th month, because the fighting took a little longer in the capital city. So they fought the 13th and the 14th against their enemies. Out in the hinterlands, it just took the one day. But for the 14th and the 15th of the 12th day of the month, from now on, there should be this party among the Jews every single year to remember God's grace. We should get together. We should celebrate. We should eat and drink and rejoice about God's goodness. We should send gifts to one another, and we should give gifts to the poor. We should take care of the poor in our midst. And we'll call this festival Purim, P-U-R-I-M, and that is still a festival that our Jewish neighbors observe every year. Every year they remember how God gives us places to be in the world, how God works through us, how God takes care of us, and how God makes a way even when there seems to be no way. The last name of the guy who wrote the phrase that pays, Schweitzer, Schweitzer, Schweitzer. It's a good German name. He was a Lutheran like us. So that's the phrase that pays. That's the story of Esther. I'm guessing that you're going to have questions. If you want to have some fun, ask your folks what a eunuch is. See how that goes, and we'll talk about all of this when we get together on the 18th. Right? Care for you like crazy. Really grateful that we've had this opportunity this year to go through these stories of the Old Testament. And Jesus has a plan and a purpose for your life. Do your work. Keep God's laws. Get ready to serve as God is preparing you. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.